command to clone this contraption to the other side, because in Java with clone command you can actually tap complete your coordinates of the block that you're looking at. So for example, if you want to clone this entire structure from that block to that other corner, you can just look at the block and type, tap, 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 and it will actually fill the coordinates for you. In this case, there is no such option. You can only set up the coordinates here on the upper left corner. However, if you start typing a command, you can see these coordinates are gone. And even if you want to, for example, put them on the side of like on a notepad and basically exit this window, you can either exit using escape, which actually removes them as well, or you can, for example, open chat as this removes them as well. So you have to remember them, put them in a notepad, and then you can, for example, want to clone from this block, okay, into, let's say, that block. You have to read those two coordinates and you have to put them on a piece of paper and then type them again. Thankfully, you can paste stuff into the chat. You cannot, unfortunately, copy it from the chat. So that's kind of a little annoyance with the fill and clone commands that actually makes it pretty painful to even work in creative in Bedrock. Speaking of fill and clone command, there's actually an interesting bug I found accidentally by cloning one of those elevators. So if we have here two shulker boxes, one is purple or undyed, the second is white. And if we clone the entire structure here, boom, we have two shulker boxes and both are white. If we pick the white shulker box that's being cloned here, it is white. If we pick the undyed shulker box here, you can see it's actually undyed. And this will actually fix itself after relogging. So that's one inconsistency, I think. The fill and clone, that's something that probably doesn't update or doesn't transfer properly. Okay, so let's leave the redstone system and contraptions behind, and let's look at the mobs and mob spawning mechanics. So we have a little bit of a setup that I prepared to test mob spawning. So the first question is, do mobs spawn in darkness? You can see all of slimes around us. And if we set up the ground here to stone and make a roof, you can see indeed they do spawn in darkness. So that's fine. So let's do something else. Let's here change the roof to stone slabs. And as we can see, actually stone slabs don't block daylight. That's actually very different because in Java, stone slabs are actually not fully transparent. Interesting thing. So let's go back to the proper roof with the full blocks. Another test we can do is, for example, what happens if we replace the floor material. As you can see, mobs actually can spawn on glass, so that's a big deal, because glass was forever, like kind of the material that can be used to prevent mob spawning, but in this case, we can clearly see that's not the case. So what if, for example, we add in carpets, because carpets is also something that has a collision, so we shouldn't allow mobs to spawn. As you can see, carpets also don't prevent mobs from spawning, so that's interesting. Okay, so let's switch to slabs, bottom slabs. Whew, at least we have one material that can prevent mobs from spawning, which is this slabs. Okay, so that's good. So let's try another trick from Java. What if we block some mob heights with trapdoors? In Java, this actually allows only spiders and creepers to spawn. In this case, yeah, we don't see many mobs actually either. Spider, yeah, so there's only spiders. So only spiders can actually spawn under trapdoors. However, there's also one very important thing that we have noticed. Here, we are here at the very bottom of the world. And in Java, in this kind of settings, we would have tons of mobs, actually entire mob cap filled pretty much almost instantly with mobs. It's because we are in the lowest subchunk and the spawning algorithm, how it works, it actually would make the entire thing just swarmed with mobs. Here in Bedrock, mob spawning is actually extremely slow. Not only it runs only within 4 chunks around the player, because that's the ticking area around the player, but also is very, very slow. So for now, we don't have any inclination how it works. However, at the end of this video, I'll actually show exactly how they spawn, actually discovered by accident. Regardless of all of that, we can still make a mob farm. So after my last Fun Farms episode, when I showed the very basic hostile mob farm you can build, lots of people were complaining, I build this mob farm and I play Xbox and it doesn't work for me, despite the title being Minecraft 1.12. And the truth is, there's actually two things that prevent it from working entirely, and they're independent of each other. So here I have a little cross section of the signal that is passed through from the top floor. Here we have a little bit, I put it on the side, so we have top over there and we have bottom of the farms over there. Let's imagine that, so we don't have too much water spilling. So in that design, the signal was actually going from the top through those observers that were actually not powering these dispensers directly, but they were updating them directly and powering through quasi-connectivity. So the water was able to trigger, and then the other dispenser would actually detect that state change of that dispenser and basically pass the signal through. Here, first of all, observers don't even react to dispensers changing their states, so that part doesn't work. Also, there is no quasi-connectivity, so despite the fact that this observer actually notifies that dispenser about the change, the dispenser decides, no, I'm not powered, I'm not flashing anything, so that's why it all breaks. However, we can fix it actually by reversing a little bit of the mechanics. So we have here a signal that's passed along through this observer into the dispenser that's actually facing down, so it's powering the dispenser directly, and the dispenser dispenses the water into this section, and then the water is being detected by this observer and passes signal to the next dispenser, and so on and so forth. So it works somehow. If you, for example, flash the system, you see it actually does it pretty nicely. However, if we retract it, you can see that there are issues, because with retracting, it's actually because we are flashing a large area, the water actually goes back and forth a couple of times in front of the observer, which actually confuses it quite a bit, which makes it almost impossible to flash it reliably. What we can do is we can raise the entire system by one block, and what would happen, we have here observers in the floor kind of sticking up, and then if the water is dispensed from the dispensers, the water actually flows kind of around the observer, which means that if we remove this water again, since this water is actually higher than the other water around it, this means that the water here on the sides would never actually flash back onto these observers' faces. So we can